Hi, and welcome to Ali Lives Well on Less. I'm Ali, an early retired teacher, currently living well on my small teacher's pension. And today is Money Monday, and I have been talking about doing this video for the last few weeks. It is coming up to the end of one full year of just living on my teacher's pension. And today I am going to talk about all the reasons why I did that and how the past year has gone. Now, I did do a video last August on this very topic. And it was one of the very early videos that I made on YouTube. If you want to go and have a look at it, I will leave a link below. But it is one of my early videos. But that video has now had 110,000 views and there are 1,314 comments on it as of this morning. So obviously people are interested in how I manage to live on a small income, and I say that I live well on a small income. I am aware that this type of video may attract non-regular viewers who are skeptical, and that was shown in some of the comments that I got on the first video that I did. And being very new to YouTube, when I made that video, I've left most of those comments, and I did try to answer as many of them as I could. This time round, I will not be answering all those types of comments, and if anyone leaves a rude comment or a trolling type of comment, I'll just delete it. I have no problem getting rid of the trolls. So, in this video, I will talk about my income, my streams of income. I will share with you my thoughts on downsizing and what I did when I downsized. I'll also talk about things like the minimum wage, and I'll talk about savings, and basically, is it possible to live well on a small amount of money? And the answer is yes. Yes, you can, but there are some buts. And there's no magical solution. There's no fancy thing that I have done that everyone could do tomorrow and do what I'm doing. It has taken plain old-fashioned planning and saving and making quite a drastic change to my lifestyle. So if that's something that you are interested in learning a little bit more about, and hopefully what I'm talking about can help you in some way, it might spark an idea in someone, and it may start a conversation with partners, families, to see if it is possible for you to do the same. And I'm going to start off by saying I am not a financial advisor. I'm going to put that disclaimer out there. This is one way of doing it. Basically, you should not be taking financial advice from anyone on YouTube. So my channel is all about sharing what I do, what I've done, and if I need advice on something, I will ask. So unsolicited advice is not really what I'm looking for in this video. I'll do some timestamps, so if there's one particular area that you are interested on, I will leave all the timestamps below, and you can fast forward to the bits that interest you and skip the bits that you don't. It could be a bit of a long one. I have been planning this for a few weeks, and I've got lots of information and data and statistics and things, because I know people like to know actual numbers. So if you haven't already got yourself a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, go get one. And I will try and stop and pause the video in appropriate places. I really want to get this right, so I may have to go back and edit or do a retake if I misspeak. people are very quick to pick you up if you say a wrong word or a wrong thing. So I'm going to do my very, very best to make sure that I am as accurate as I can be. And as always, I will be as honest and as open as I can be about my financial situation. So that's the introduction bit over with. Let's get on with the main part of the video. So, I'm Ali. I'm 59, and when I was 57, I retired early from teaching. Now, everything that I say in this video applies to the UK, or in my case specifically to Scotland. So please make sure that you check, the information in your area. So in Scotland, in the UK, if you are a public sector worker, you can retire at 55. You can take your pension that you have been paying into for a very long time, and it's completely separate from your state pension. So when I say I am living on my small teacher's pension, I mean I am just living on my teacher's pension. I still have 8 more years now until I get my state pension. Now, because I was a teacher for 35 years, a lot of that time was part-time job sharing. I had career breaks. So I do not have a full teacher's pension. So when I tell you my pension numbers, they apply to me. So you would need to find out what your specific pension would be. So in the UK, basically, if you work for one of the government provided services, public sector, then you will have been paying into your pension all along. And I will admit that in my early years, I did not know much about pensions and saving for your future. And I have talked about that in other videos. If you are interested in how I got to be doing what I'm doing, I'll leave a link to my £5 in a purse story, because that explains a little bit of the background and how I got to where I am. And there is also another video on why I retired early from teaching. So basically, I retired at 57 because I'd had enough. And I had done all the sums, and I worked out that if I sold my house and I downsized, I could afford to live on my teacher's pension until I got my state pension. So I thought that if I could live on a small amount now, by the time I get to 67, which is when I will get my pension, by the time I get to 67, I will feel loaded. Basically, I will have more than enough money to meet my needs. So if I can do it now on a small amount, I knew that I would be fine in my old age. So my teacher's pension works out at £772 a month. Now, I think some months it's 84 pence, some months it's 60 pence, it just depends. So I disregard the pence numbers, and I live on £772 a month, and I can pay all my bills, do everything I need to within that amount of money. So it doesn't sound a lot if you are paying things like a mortgage, if you're paying rent, or you're paying for a car. Now, when I retired, I had got to the point where I had no mortgage, obviously wasn't paying rent, and I was just about to pay off my car. So as a teacher, I was earning a really good salary. And out of that salary, I was able to save some money as well. So basically, I practiced living on half my salary and saved the other half, because I knew that by the time I retired, whatever the circumstances I found myself in, I would need to sell my house. Now, if you go back and you look at those previous videos that I mentioned earlier, so basically in 2010, my life changed. And I realised that I was responsible for myself going into my old age. By the time I got to about 2019, I was serious. I was serious about wanting to retire early. And that was the focus. So the secret, if you like, to what I'm doing is planning and saving. I didn't deny myself things. I mean, I still went on holiday, I still bought nice clothes, ate nice food, you know, went out with friends, did a lot of things. But I was still saving half my salary. So my first big tip for anyone who wants to do something like this, I would suggest saving as much as you can. Get rid of your debt and save. But again, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just saying this is what I did and this is what I would advise if anyone asked me. So, yep. Save, save, save. That's it. It's so boring. If someone comes to you and says, oh, if you just save £10 a month for 5 years, you'll have £1 million. Nah. Don't believe it. And there will be people, scammers, who will leave things in my comments about a financial advisor or whatever. I will delete them. So if you see them before I get to them, I will delete them. So 2023, I retired. I officially retired in August, and I started getting my teacher's pension in September of that year. Now, I was living in a big house. It had big bills, so I was using my savings to pay those bills. But I knew I was going to sell in 2024. So in May 2024, so exactly a year ago, I sold my big house and I downsized. So the next part of this video is all about downsizing and what I did when I downsized. So the best way to cut your cost is to make sure that you don't have a house bigger than your needs. Now, I was living on my own, and just as an aside, I am living by myself by choice. So when I did the last video, there were a few comments along the lines of, you need a husband. No, I really don't need a husband or someone else to be telling me what to do with my money and my life. So no, that is a positive choice I have made for myself. So I knew that I did not need a 4-bedroomed house. So I knew that I was going to sell that house. And because I'd been living in that house for 11 years, I bought it at the bottom of the market. It was a bit of a fixer-upper. And over those 11 years, now remember, I was working full-time as a teacher. I was able to do things to that house to improve it, to increase its value. And over time, property does increase in value. Over the years, so over the many years I have bought and sold houses, I like to think I've learned a few tricks, and I know a little bit about buying property and selling property. So I knew that when I sold it, I would have a significant amount of money that I would be able to use. Now, lots of people, when they retire, downsize, and then they use the equity. If they've paid off their mortgage, they may have enough equity to do something nice. And where I live, there are lots of retired people, and where I live, there are lots of people who have caravans and camper vans sitting in their driveway, and there are an awful lot of Mercedes cars sitting in driveways. And I see these every day when I take my dog Luna for a walk. And I know that these fancy caravans, camper vans, there's a Porsche round the corner from me, they don't move. They sit in driveways and yep. But that's their choice. And even though I describe myself as living a frugal life, my frugality doesn't look like anyone else's, and frankly, it shouldn't look like anyone else's. So if someone tells you you can't be frugal because, then just ignore them, because you can be frugal however you like. It's all about choosing where to spend your money. And that word choosing is really, really important, because when I downsized, I chose to buy a small 2-bedroom semi-house, and I chose to buy a flat. So I bought 2 properties outright with no mortgage from the proceeds of my house sale and my savings, and I had a tiny little bit of inheritance money that I got from my uncle. There was a little bit left over. So I combined all that money and I bought 2 properties. Now, this is where I get a lot of flack. People say, oh, you own 2 properties, you must be rolling in it. So I'm going to address this, and I'm only going to say this once, and I'm not going to talk about it again in videos. I bought a flat for a family member. Their circumstances are private, and they have asked me not to talk about it in specific, but in general, I bought this property for a family member, and they pay me a small amount of rent. And I'll come to that when it comes to my income. Now, I do not charge the full market rate. In fact, I charge considerably less than the current market rate here in Stirling. And all that money goes towards the costs of being a landlord and repairs in the flat. And I will talk about that later on. Being a landlord, being legally registered as a landlord, means that you have to do quite a lot of things that cost money. So even though for the taxman purposes, I have some rental income, I don't use it, I don't live on it, I keep it aside for things that need done in the flat. So I hope that clears up questions that people have had in the past about the rental property. But as I said, I'm not going to discuss any details about the who and the why, and that's it. So I was fortunate enough that I was able to do that. My choice. I did not have to buy this family member a flat. I got some flack in the first video where, in fact, I had to sort of ban one person who was quite insistent that I should be using that extra money to travel the world and do things. And I'm like, oh, no. Frugality is always about choice. So downsizing may be an option if you want to either retire early, like I did, or basically you just want to slow down your life and take things at a much slower pace and basically step out of the rat race. And I can totally understand that, because that was one of the reasons that I took early retirement. Okay, right. Let's talk about my actual income. Now, this is what I submit to the Inland Revenue. So these are the actual numbers. So in April last month, my pension went up a little bit. So I had 11 months at £772, and it's gone up by... Oh, I've got so many notes. It went up by about £20. I think it's £18 something. Okay. I will leave a graphic or a picture of the actual numbers so that you can see, or in fact, I might put them on the screen. So, my actual pension from the 1st of June to the 31st, so the 1st of June 2024 to the 31st of May 2025, my pension income was £9,291.01. The rental income for that same period was £6,000. I charged £500 a month, and £6,000 is what goes into my bank account. Now, I also unexpectedly started getting ad revenue because, as I say, that video gave me enough views and subscribers that I got monetized after 3.5 weeks. So my ad revenue from October to April was £4,518.03. Now, I donate a large portion of my ad revenue, so I have donated £2,839.28. Now, out of all of that income, so my gross income is £19,809.04. So that is my annual income-ish. It will fluctuate with the ad revenue, but that's how much it was from the 1st of June last year to the 31st of April, the 31st of May this year. See what I mean about misspeaking? Someone will, you know the time period. It's from June to May this year, so 12 months. So living in Scotland, in the UK, my personal tax allowance is £12,750. So the rest, so that leaves me with £7,059.04, and that is what I get taxed on. So I pay tax on just over £7,000, and I pay it at the 20% rate. So I have set aside tax for that purpose. So that's tax on my rental income and tax on the ad revenue. So my tax bill is around £1,500. So it's £1,411.81. Now, I have put aside more tax than I need just in case, because I have not been in this position before, because I've been a public sector worker and the lovely HR department would sort out all my tax and insurance and stuff. So, yeah, so this is new ground for me, but these are the numbers that I will submit to the taxman. A recent comment on one of my videos when I was talking about dipping into my savings fund said, why didn't I just use the rental income? Now, it sounds good having £6,000 in rental income, but remember, I need to pay tax on it at 20%. As a legal landlord, I have to have electrical certificates, I have to have boiler certificates, I have to pay landlord registration with Stirling Council and the Scottish Government. And basically you are responsible for everything that could go wrong. In fact, yesterday I was dealing with a blocked drain. So it sounds like, oh, you've got a few £1,000s there to play with. I don't have that available for me to live on. That is put away to be spent on repairs and maintenance. And that is a responsibility that I take very seriously. So even though it is a family member living in the flat, I do have these obligations, and that is something to bear in mind if you think that buying a rental property would be a good source of income in your retirement. And it can be, but there are responsibilities that come with that. Okay, so I'm going to get into the nitty-gritty of my monthly expenditure and how I spend my £772. Now, after buying the 2 properties, paying the legal bills, all the other blah, 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 boring stuff that you have to do, I had around £1,900 left over from everything. So that went into my emergency savings funds, sinking funds, whatever you want to call it. And out of that, I already knew that I would need to buy a new washing machine. I knew that I would pay my house insurance and my car insurance out of that money. So that was all covered then. As it turned out, I also had to buy a new fridge freezer because the integrated one broke, and I bought an extra freezer. So that depleted my savings funds to just under £1,000. I think it was, I did look up my bank account records and stuff, but I can't find the exact number. So it was around £990-ish. So let's call it 1,000. So going forward, I had £1,000 in my emergency fund. So and remember at this point, I'm not getting any ad revenue. So the rental income is put away elsewhere. I am living on my pension. So let's look at the monthly numbers, and this has changed over time. I'm going to start off by saying that you can't help where you live. So if I tell you how much my council tax is and you think, oh, well, mine's double that, that's just geography. That's just where you live. Some people always say things like, well, I can get my internet for less than that. Yep, that's great. That's fine. I always work hard to get the best cost that I can. So out of my £772 a month, although from next month it will be £790, but okay, remember we're talking about this period from June to May. I have what I call my fixed outgoings or my direct debits. And again, I'm going to leave a picture of this so that you can have a good look at it. But out of the fixed outgoings and direct debits, okay, so I pay for my combined internet and phone contract. I pay my car tax, so these are all monthly. I pay my TV license, and I know that sparks debate. I pay my TV license because I do watch the BBC and I do watch iPlayer. My gas and electricity is a fixed cost. My council tax, which in Scotland includes water charges. We don't get a separate bill. It's all in one, so you could have your taps on all day long and it would not make any difference. I have a dog, Luna, so I do have the pet plan, which covers flea, wormers, 3 vet visits a year, vet nurse checkups. It's not insurance, but it covers the ongoing costs of having a dog. I have Amazon Prime. It's just, that's the only streaming thing that I have. And I have boiler and heating cover that I pay for each month because my boiler is about 10 years old. So I'm just covering myself just in case. So what comes out of my bank is that number, 387.41. I also have a fixed cost in that my dog Luna needs to eat every month, and she also has some digestive issues, so I buy a separate probiotic. Again, I've found the best deal for me. So I take off her costs, which is £62. And I also set aside £67 into savings for my car and my house insurance. So these are all the things that I pay for out of my £772, and I am left with £256 a month. Now there's a few pence involved, but there's £256 a month. And that covers everything else. So that covers food supermarket, it covers petrol, it covers things like going out for coffee or going out for a meal with friends, it covers clothes, it covers going to the hairdresser, which I don't do very often. I have a style that doesn't need a lot of cutting. I don't dye my hair anymore, and that that gets comments as well about my hair, and I should dye it, and I would look better, I would look younger. Yeah, whatever. Regular viewers might have noticed that I did put on a bit of lippy today, because someone will always say that I look pale, or put a bit of lippy on, love. You have to be thick-skinned when you're a YouTuber, but I taught 5-year-olds for years, so yeah, when you've had 5-year-olds tell you you've got a moustache and ask if you've got a baby in your belly, then yeah, you can't be too full of yourself anyway. So basically everything that I need, I can cover out of that. Now, it does mean that you have to be careful with your shopping. You can't just run out and buy clothes whenever you like. You have to think carefully about how often you go out for coffee or for a meal or get a takeaway. But it's all doable. It's all doable in that amount if you are disciplined. And I do appreciate that, because I live by myself with Luna. I make all the decisions. I do whatever I want whenever I like, and I don't have to consult or negotiate with anyone. So that does make things a lot easier than it might be if you are a couple or a family trying to live on a small income. Okay, Editing Ali here, just to add in something about my car costs. For some reason, when I bought the car, I took out a 5-year servicing plan, and this year is the last year of that plan, so I can get my car serviced. It's already been paid for, and my car will need an MOT, which will come out of my August £256, and I actually drive a Honda Jazz hybrid, which means it switches between petrol and electric, and I fill it up roughly once every 2 months, just under £50 worth, depending on whether I've made a lot of long trips or not, but that is enough to last. I know people always ask about my car costs, so I forgot to mention that in the main part of the video. So there's a close-up of my monthly costs, and yep, my fixed costs are £516, so I do have £256 to spend, which will include some of the car things, but I don't need to pay car things very often. Okay, Editing Ali here. I'm just adding in to the bit where I'm talking about my my monthly expenses. Someone always asks about dental costs and the optician. In the UK, we have NHS dentists, and I am very, very lucky. I have an NHS dentist, so most of my dental treatment is done under the NHS at a very low cost. Occasionally I might need to pay for something like a white filling, but I haven't had any fillings for a couple of years now, so I'm gradually replacing my metal fillings, so the white ones are more expensive, but touch wood, I haven't needed any expensive dental treatment for a good few years. Opticians, in Scotland we get free eye tests every 2 years. Just before I retired, I bought some new glasses, some varifocals, and reading glasses. I also have prescription sunglasses, so these were all bought while I was working full-time. They are expensive. I think I paid about £300 for my last pair of glasses, so I am very careful with them. I don't need to wear glasses all the time, so I am very careful with my glasses. But yes, that would be an expense that would probably come out of savings. So I hope that clears that bit up. Now, even though I am retired, my channel is not about being retired. My channel is about living well on a small amount of money. And I'm going to share with you in the UK what our minimum wage is. Okay, so I'm just going to look at my screen here because I want to get these numbers absolutely spot on. So from April 2025 in the UK, anyone over 21 on the minimum wage should earn £23,873.60 for a 37.5-hour week. So even if you're working full time on a minimum wage, that's still more than my annual income. So even though I've got my teacher's pension, I've got some rental income, I've got some Google ad revenue from my YouTube channel, my gross income is still less than the minimum wage in the UK. So, and I'm sharing that because there may well be people who are working full time on the minimum wage, and there may be people who want to reduce their hours or their days, and wonder if it's possible to live on a small income. And I hope what I've talked about today is helpful in that I'm showing that you can live well on a small amount of money, but you do have to plan ahead, and you do have to have no debt, and that includes a mortgage, and it does mean that you don't have to pay rent. So I knew this was going to be a long video. I'm going to stop here, but I am going to go back and review the footage just to make sure that what I'm saying is accurate and I have clarified everything. I may also add a bit to the beginning. Someone is not going to watch the whole video and then jump in with a question. So if anyone does that, I am just going to say watch the video, basically, because I don't have time to answer 1,300 comments like the first time round. So if you've made it all the way to the end of this video, I thank you so much, and I do hope that you have taken something from it. Regular viewers of my channel already know all this stuff, and they are my biggest cheerleaders, and I thank you so much for that. Yeah, so I hope that was useful. As I say, I will go and fact check all my things and make sure that what I've said is completely accurate and up to date. So thank you for watching. Have a great day, and I will hopefully see you again in my other videos where we talk about all aspects of living well on a small income. Bye for now.